الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. On the behalf of the MACE Center, we have the honor to have all of you here, and especially the Senator Nina and Brother Ellison Keys, and also Professor Cornel West. And we are all of you welcome in our center. I just have to make a housekeeping note that our organization is non-profit, so we cannot endorse candidate or parties. So we are open here to everybody, and we are welcoming anybody who want to join us. And we welcome Nina for our visit in our center. Also, I will make advice by the CDC recommendation. That's to have the mask even if you are vaccinated, unless if you're going to talk or eat. So I would like you, just for protection for everybody. Jazakumullah. Thank you very much, and welcome to our center.
Wow, this is wonderful. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. My name is Cornel. It is my honor to be in community with you, and I'm certainly fortunate to be here in this historic moment in Cleveland. Before I make my opening remarks, I do want to thank the organizers and the co-chairs of this event, Ziad Tayyib, Dr. Mansour Ahmed, Dr. Ahmed Banna, Malak Rashid, Pierre Bajani, Malik Khawami, Noha Awan, and last but not least, our honorary Iranian, who's been adopted to our family, Mayor Trevor Elkins. So it's great to have you. I do want to also thank our honorable speakers, national icon of civil rights, philosopher, and author, Dr. Cornel West. Our very first Muslim congressman, who now holds the distinguished title of Minnesota Attorney General, Ellison. And as you all know, the woman we're all here to fight for, a true social justice champion, a woman I am proud to call my sister, to whom I promised to go to the end of world for, Senator and future Congresswoman Nina Turner. The results and the outcome of the August 3rd primary election will reverberate far beyond Dist, Ohio. It's been my honor to be here in Cleveland, walking the neighborhoods with Senator Nina Turner, knocking on doors, and talking to constituents about this race. A race with profound national and international implications for the future of the Democratic Party and justice around the world. This is a struggle of the old guard who protects the special interests versus the fearless progressive champion of change. And as I walk through the streets of Cleveland and gaze upon dilapidated buildings abandoned from people who fled the suburbs to the suburbs, and as I feel the cracks in the sidewalks beneath my feet, I can't help but to remember my own homeland of Iran, where my mother received her first dose of vaccination only a few days ago. After President Biden approved temporary general licenses to allow for the importation of medical devices and supplies only three sanctioned countries. And in the midst of a pandemic where people are highly impacted globally, only 5 countries in the world hoard all of the vaccination. I can't help but think about the children living in poverty in Ohio at a 46.1 rate, when billionaires in this country suck up all of the wealth. And I am then reminded of Yemen, a country now known to be the biggest humanitarian crisis in the world, with 400,000 people starving under brutal blockade. That is a true tragedy. I've been blessed however, to be in the presence of a woman who loves the people of this region as if they are her own brothers, sisters, mother, fathers, sons, and daughters. Her larger-than-life presence and her powerful words shake the core of establishment as she travels on a journey to make this country and the world a better place for her grandchildren and for children all across the nation and the world. And of course, with an existential climate crisis becoming looming large, our beloved Senator Turner is fully prepared to be a champion for the federal infrastructure dollars needed to address climate justice with positive programs. She's a champion of bold progressive policies. We need to ensure that we are creating a future that is equitable and safe for every single one of us. Not just those in power who barely speak truth to power. The time is now for us to live our values, and no one, and I mean no one, embodies living her truth like Senator, soon-to-be Congresswoman Nina Turner. Sister, I cannot wait to hear your heels echo in the House of Congress, and hopefully, inshallah, the White House. Community, August 3rd is the last day to vote. Your vote is your only power. Take advantage of it. I would ask you all to, starting tomorrow, knock on doors for her, make phone calls for her. Because if we don't have true champions in Congress, we are not going to be able to progress in any way, shape, or form. And our countries are heavily impacted overseas. So, with that said, I'd like to introduce my co-chair of this incredible event, Ziad Tayyip, who's an attorney at law and the president of the Islamic Center in Cleveland, who will be introducing Attorney General Keith Ellison. So take it away, please.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I'm proud to stand here before you today in support of Senator Nina Turner. In a couple of days, we're going to have the honor and privilege of calling you Congresswoman. Now, for most of our history as American Muslims, we've had impediments into entering the American legal system. We've been ostracized by politicians. We've had a sense of hopelessness that no matter how hard we work, we'll never be able to impact the American political system. And if we're being honest, we had some overzealous religious leaders with backwards ideologies who told us that participating in the American political system was somehow antithetical to our religion. All of these served as barriers to entry into the political system. And we needed someone to break down those barriers and pave a way for us to enter into the system. And that man is Attorney General Keith Ellison. Attorney General Keith Ellison was the first Muslim congressman elected to the US Congress, and he served from 2007 to 2019 in the state of Minnesota. Thereafter, he was appointed as the first Muslim Attorney General of any state in 2019. Without further ado, I have the honor of introducing Attorney General Keith Ellison.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. What a pleasure to be right here with everyone, campaigning, talking about my beloved sister, Nina Turner. Very exciting moment. Brother, thank you for that fine introduction. And to all my dear respected brothers and sisters in the Muslim community and whatever community may come from, let me just say, when we say salam alaikum, we just mean peace be unto you. And we're so happy to be able to extend peace to you and the blessings of peace to you. Now, let me just say that this gathering is important to me and all of us. One reason being that the Muslim community is made up of components, as you know. And the African American part of the Muslim Ummah, Muslim family, that part of it, up until 1965, we really could not vote. We were locked out of democracy in the United States. You know, we had to pass the 1965 Civil Rights Act just to be able to, for any African Americans to be able to vote any kind of real numbers. So we don't have a long history as black people as in democracy in America, period.
That's right, that's right.
And a lot of the family of the Muslim Ummah that comes from, maybe immigrated from overseas, a lot of them come from countries where even if you can technically vote, it doesn't really make much difference. I mean, Mubarak was getting 99% of the vote, right? Mubarak got 99%, Bashar al-Assad got 98%. You know, it's just really kind of these sham elections, you know what I'm saying? And so, you know, Muslims in Pakistan, you know, working so hard, if you were not a member of one of the families that basically owned all the land in the country, you really didn't have any political voice. In India, Muslims are a persecuted minority. China too. And so many of us who hail from overseas, or either ourselves or our parents or our grandparents who immigrated to the United States, don't have a long history of democratic participation either. Am I right about this? This is true. This is perfectly true. So the entire Muslim Ummah, all of us, come to the United States, American democracy, somewhat new to the game. All of us. And so we come to this and we think, well, does it work? Will it work for us? This is for somebody else. And then you are right, brother. There were, when I first ran for Congress, there were some scholars who said voting is haram. And I know not everybody in the audience today is Muslim, so haram just means forbidden. Like it's a sin or something, it's wrong. And yet, I think the Muslim community over the course of years has come to the conclusion that if you're in a position, through a vote, to make society fairer, better, to do something for the environment, to do something for civil and human rights, to have a more just foreign policy, then it may be obligatory for you to vote. Because we have hadith that says, you know what? Faith, they talk about what is faith? Well, the highest of faith is actually knowing something is wrong and doing something about it. It's also an act of faith, you know, to know something is wrong and say something about it. And it's also an act of faith to know in your heart that something is wrong and you don't say anything, but you just know that. But that is faith, but it's the weakest of faith. That's the weakest of faith. And so we now are in a position right here, right now, to actually do something to improve justice, fairness, equality in America, and that is to vote for none other than Nina Turner. And for those of us who live in the United States and who are Muslims, we have friends who are Christian and Jewish and Hindu and Buddhist. And Nina Turner has family members. Her father and I were at Jumu'ah prayer just yesterday. Were we not? Salam alaikum. And so standing neck to neck. And so I had the same experience, except reverse, because my mother was Christian. I reverted to Islam. So your father's a Muslim, my mother was a Christian, but we're all relatives of each other, right? And this really as it should be. We should not have interfaith conflict. We should have interfaith harmony, right? That's what we really should have. You should know that Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said to the monks who were Christians of St. Catherine, which is located in the Sinai Desert, that if anybody bothers you, we will risk our blood to defend you. This is the tradition. You know, when the Muslims the early Sahaba were chased out of the Arabian Peninsula, they ran to the other side of the sea in Abyssinia.
That's right.
And there was a king who was a good king, and he was a Christian king, and he gave them safe haven. And then when some of their family members, because the Quraysh who chased them were their family members, said, they're renegades and troublemakers, give them back to us so we can punish them. He said, well, what have they done? And that king was so satisfied with the Muslim high regard for Isa, who we know as Jesus, that they said, they can stay, but you better get out of here. My point is, we are family. You know, we believe that we're all descended from Adam and Eve, which makes us siblings of each other. And we all should want for our brothers and sisters what we want for ourselves. And what we want for each other is justice, fairness, health care, right? Who would like some health care? Who would like to be able to, you know, Sister Nina, I know you know this, Muslims get, diabetes too, you know, and need insulin too, right? And so you're in a place where the message that you're laying down is very, very welcome and it's universal. And in criminal justice reform, so many of you may know, as Attorney General, my office was given the responsibility of prosecuting the people who murdered George Floyd. And it wasn't murder. I used to say it was a homicide or a killing. After the jury came back within 24 hours to say murder, it's murder, right? And so, you know, you'll go into Congress means a lot to the Muslim community because the Muslim community has been targeted with a lot of injustice. You know, a lot of targeted sting operations, a lot of unfairness. There's one young man doing life in prison because the prosecutor went to the jury and said, well, you know how Muslim men are. You know how they are. So of course he did it. Well, you know, that was an appeal to religious bigotry. Muslim community knows a lot about unfairness in the criminal justice system. And we're really counting on leaders like you to help fix it. So I'm just gonna sit myself down right now because I'm so proud that you are all here turned out on this Saturday evening to hear from a candidate who's about to win an historic election, inshallah. Let me just now say that I would like to call to the microphone, truly one of the heroes and the mentors of this moment. You know, one of the people who speaks a clear truth, who calls for the moral imperative, no matter what. He doesn't seek political office unless, if you change your mind, you let me know. But Cornel West has not sought political office. He does something even more important than that. He calls us all to our higher, better, moral selves, and he holds the politicians who hold the public trust to a greater account. And that's even more important than being in office, in my opinion. So with that, would you all kindly put your hands together in a warm greeting?
Just a quick announcement. The bathrooms are in the back. Right? Because people come and ask for it. The ladies on this side and the men's on that side. Right?
No, let's give it up for our brother. He's keeping it real. What a blessing for me to be here. My voice is almost gone from my earlier support this morning. For Sister Nina Turner. I shall continue to give it everything I've got. Because that's who Nina Turner is. She deserves our support. She deserves our service to her cause. That's one of the differences between Nina Turner and most of the garden variety politicians. That they usually are milquetoast, money-driven, and moderate because they're well adjusted to injustice. And they're well adapted to indifference. Sister Nina Turner. She is a statesperson. She's a thermostat, not a thermometer. Thermostat always shapes the climate. A thermometer just reflects it. I want to thank those who brought us together and who Persian sister. Her leadership, as soon as we met, she made a beeline to my beloved wife, Anahita. My father was also a Persian, and they started talking in Farsi. I said, yes, I'm in the right place. I'm in the right place. And then I looked around, and I saw my Muslim brothers and sisters, and I said to myself, as a black man in America, I come from a great people, and our greatest athlete was a Muslim named Muhammad Ali. Our greatest revolutionary voice of the 20th century was a brother named Malcolm X. Some of you might not know him, but in the hip-hop community, the greatest hip-hop artist of all time is a Muslim named Rakim. And the most God-intoxicated jazz musician of all time was married to a Muslim woman named Naima. So when I walk into a Muslim space, as a black man, as a revolutionary Christian, I can't conceive of myself without Muhammad Ali, without Malcolm X, without Rakim, without Naima and John Coltrane. And I can hear Malcolm X in the background saying, I'm for truth no matter who says it. I'm a universalist. I'm for justice no matter who promotes it. I'm a universalist. And he says, I'm a human being, I'm a Muslim, I'm a black man. That's Malcolm X. And he is as much my brother as Martin Luther King Jr. And Martin Luther King Jr. and I are free, Jesus-loving black men. But that doesn't mean that at the deepest level of spirituality and morality, we're concerned about truth and justice. And the condition of truth is to allow suffering to speak. Anybody claim to be talking about truth and trying to suppress the voices of the suffering, you can rest be assured they're usually a mainstream politician or somebody just lying for careers and opportunistic ends and aims. And so it is with justice. And justice is what love looks like in public. But we should know, as Muslims, as Christians, as Jews, as Buddhists, that any justice that's only justice soon degenerates into something less than justice. You got to have love. And that's when it turns about. She comes from a people who have been hated chronically for 400 years. But she's a love warrior. She cuts against the hate. She comes from a people who've been terrorized for 400 years. She decides to be a freedom fighter for everybody. And she comes from a people who've been traumatized for 400 years. She decides to be a wounded healer rather than a wounded hurter. That's Nina Turner. That's what she comes out of my tradition. I come out of her tradition. You can't separate her from her father and her mother and her grandmother and her aunt and her uncle. I see. Because Sly Stone says it's a family affair. Sly Stone used to play organ in my church, Shiloh Baptist Church on the chocolate side of Sacramento, but we won't get into that today. We can talk about it. So I am so happy that you have decided to come here and support my dear sister because she represents the highest standards of moral and spiritual excellence of a black people. And those standards relate to each and every one of us, no matter what color we are. But for folk who walk around and act like they ain't got no color, you better get off the crack pipe. A white supremacist civilization, you're going to have to make moral and spiritual decisions as to who you're in solidarity with, because white supremacy is still operating every day, every moment, every month, every year. But at the same time, as Muslims, as Christians, we say we reject all forms of idolatry. There is no God but Allah. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. And that's the idolatry of color. Just because somebody's black doesn't mean that they are some paradigm of virtue. And I present myself as a case, because I was a gangster before I met Jesus, and now I'm a redeemed sinner with gangster proclivities. My dear sister, we come out of a tradition that says, redeemed sinners that we are. Something greater is pushing us in the right direction. And there's something inside of us that's shot through with the hounds of hell. Of greed and hatred and fear and hypocrisy and envy and resentment. Yes, there are some Muslims who got gangster proclivities. There are some Christians who have gangster proclivity. There are some Jewish brothers and sisters who have gangster proclivity. There are some Buddhists who do. And anybody who claims that don't need to get off the crack pipe. This is very important. This is crucial. Because if our witness is to be real, and that's what Nina Turner is all about. She is for real. She's the real thing. The true thing. And even in all of the truth, there's still humanity and fallibility and fallenness and finitude. That's why we need something greater than us. That's what we're here to celebrate. Given the truncated, corruption-driven nature of the American political system, it's still possible to find persons of integrity, honesty, decency, unbelievable courage, and vision. I'm looking at one right now. To make it through that system. And then to have persons behind her that are keeping her and all of us accountable. That's what it's about. And that's why I'm glad to say just a word from my dear sister. That's why Anahita and I flew in from California last night and said, we're not going to miss this for the world. Because we are going to make history. And we're going to have a solidarity of oppressed people, no matter whether they're Muslims or Christians or Jews or Buddhists. And that solidarity is going to be one in which we are willing to pay a cost. You get in trouble talking about Palestinians, so what? So what? Oh yeah. Nobody's going to stop me or anybody from saying that precious Palestinian baby has the same value as a Jewish baby in Tel Aviv. That's right. It's a moral question. It's a spiritual question. It's not a question of popularity. It's a question of integrity. It's a question of spiritual consistency. That's the best of my tradition. And my hunch is it's the best of your tradition too. Right. So, do I get a chance to introduce my sister? Oh, Lord have mercy. Lord, I wish I could sing a song like Aretha. But I would want to introduce to you, to present to others, the greatest progressive voice in this nation, who was the spiritual powerhouse behind the Bernie Sanders campaign, which was historically unprecedented and shifting the discourse away from the greed of the 1% to the precious humanity of everyday people, of working and poor people, no matter who they were, embracing our Muslim brothers and sisters, embracing our Arabs, embracing our Palestinians as human beings, those made in the image of the same God as the other folk who've already been embraced. That's who we have here. She has a special calling from above. That's why the politicians don't understand her. You don't start with policy and politics when you're talking about Nina Turner. You start with issues of spirituality, shattering callousness and indifference. You start with issues of morality, of integrity, honesty, decency, generosity, service to others, service to the least of these. That's a rare thing. It's like finding a jazz musician in a military band. I'm just a little bit off the beat. It's true. That's who she is. Nina Turner. Nina Turner, we love her. Nina Turner. One and only. Nina Turner.
I love Dr. West. Oh, to the community, it's such a pleasure to be here at the center with you. To Dr. Mansour, to Zayed, to Dr. Bana, to my dear sister Hania, to the entire host committee in the center. Just thank you. To Dr. Cornel West, the one and only. I call him the intergalactic intellectual. And to my brother, A.G. Keith Ellison. Oh my God, he's America's Attorney General. To my sisters, and I know it's a wonderful meal prepared to the side, and Dr. West and A.G. Ellison and myself have one more event to do tonight. We're going to fellowship and familyship with you here. This is a beautiful outpouring of this community. All of us coming together from different walks of life. I want to shout out my siblings who are here, and also my dad that Dr. West and A.G. Ellison made reference to. My dad, we found, people call him Coach T, but his name is Talib Alahi, and my dad gave me my first Quran. And I love my dad very much. A lot of you hear me talk about my mom a lot of times, those of you who have heard me tell my stories over the years. I'm blessed to have my dad here in the flesh, and he definitely is a wonderful, wonderful man. Things happen in life, and my mother was the custodial parent, but my dad was always there, and it was really hard. And even though
All right. All right. That's all right.
Take your time.
I know. I know that I have accomplished some pretty amazing things. I always think about, you know, my dad and the struggles in life and what differences it would have made if my parents had stayed together for a very long time. And I am blessed to have my dad. My mom died when she was 42 years old with her dreams deferred. And she had lots of challenges that even as an adult, I'm just starting to realize. But my dad was always there. People always have a misnomer. You know, black fathers are there. You don't know the individual circumstances. So I just want to lift my dad's hand. I'm seeing so many new faces and so many familiar faces, people I've been in relationship for a very long time. And I want to say to this community that you are loved and that you are lifted. One of the reasons why I'm being attacked so hard by a certain group of people is because I believe in justice and security for all. And I'm standing on that. And we cannot have justice and safety and security in the United States of America if any of our sisters and brothers and family and friends in any part of the world are suffering. And we have to begin to see ourselves, not just as citizens of this country, of this great and fallible country. And lots of countries are fallible, it's not just the United States of America. But we have to begin to see ourselves as citizens of the world. And if this pandemic has not cemented anything, I hope that it has cemented that what happens to one directly happens to all indirectly. The Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. talked a lot about that. And as both A.G. Ellison and Dr. West laid out, you know, when it comes to Minister Malcolm X, when he spoke a certain type of truth, and I'm right there where he is, I am for truth, no matter who it is for or against. I am for justice, no matter who it is for or against. I am going to stand up against all hate, Islamophobia, anti-Semitism, anti-blackness, anti-being transphobia, you know, the stuff that our LGBTQ plus community go through. Anybody that is marginalized and is suffering in this nation and in this world, I am on their side without equivocation. I am for what is right. When A.G. Ellison talked about interfaith harmony, I mean, that really spoke to my soul. That really is what this is about. We are all God's children. And everybody has a group of people who can be extreme. Not just one group, every group has somebody. And every group has people in their group, in their midst, that are imperfect. What we are looking for as people on God's green earth is to bring conscious-minded people together from all walks of life, all faiths, to stand together to do an extraordinary thing, which is to know that our survival is indelibly linked, both directly and indirectly linked. That if somebody doesn't have food, clean water, clean air, that is our problem. If somebody doesn't have a place to lay their head at night, that is our problem. If we have countries in this world who do not have not only access to the vaccine, but are getting vaccines in arms, that is our problem, United States of America. That is our problem, every other industrialized nation. We can't be safe in this kind of situation unless all of our sisters and brothers and family and friends are safe. Our love for one another is what binds us together. And we need more leaders, and all of those leaders don't have to have elected titles. Sisters and brothers, family and friends, we all have a role to play. When we look in the mirror every day, we need to ask the question, are we walking in justice? Are we talking in justice? Are we hugging in justice? Are we walking in justice? What is our collective responsibility one to another? And so many people over the decades, over the generations, have sacrificed so much so that people like us can be in a room like this together and be free-thinking people and come together to do a new thing, not just in this country, but in the world. So the pandemic has shown us how much we need one another. And there is another type of chaos that we must deal with as the world, and that is climate chaos, famine and despair. The push and pull factors, people being pushed or pulled from their homeland because they can't live there anymore. Wildfires, mudslides, hurricanes, tornadoes, people not having food to eat and clean water to drink. It is unconscionable anywhere in the world for that to be the reality. But I want to say especially in these United States of America, being the wealthiest nation on the face of the earth, my scripture says that to whom much is given, much is required. The greatest among you shall be the servant. That's right. And when we talk about and think about white supremacy, the same white supremacists who hate my black son, hate the sons and daughters of our Jewish sisters and brothers, the same white supremacists who hate my black son, hate the sons and daughters of our Muslim sisters and brothers, the same white supremacists hate Arab Americans, Asian Americans. Our Asian sisters and brothers is going through a thing too. None of this stuff is new. So we all must unite conscious-minded people based on what we have in common, and we got to call out wrong no matter what and stand arm in arm together for justice, light, liberty, and everybody's pursuit of happiness in this country and in the world. We are obligated. What happens over there happens over here. Now we can run, but we cannot hide. There will be a moral reckoning in this country and in this world. So what I am saying to my Muslim sisters and brothers today, because we are in your house, is that I am running because of love and I am running to serve. And there are forces who have mounted up against me because they know that I am running in love, and I am running to serve and to lift all people and to take all interests into account, to have conversations with people from different communities so they can tell me their story and their vantage point and how they see things and what is their understanding, and not taking one view over another, but taking the collective of the views. My maternal grandmother used to say there are three sides to the truth: your side, their side, and the right side. The only way to understand truth and all of its gradations is to hear the voices of you and 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 us together. Stephen Covey, one of the most world-renowned leadership gurus, he says, seek first to understand and then to be understood. We need more leaders who are willing to first understand and then to be understood, and not to jump to conclusions and vilify one person over another, over another, over another, over another. It is wrong. You know, I remember my dad always telling me stories, and I don't know if my dad remembers these two stories. One is, he was in a suburban community. I forgot where he was. This is way before 9/11, because I'm going to tell you a 9/11 story too. And there was law enforcement, I think my dad said, across the street. And there was this feeling that he got when he was pumping that gas, that as soon as he pulled out of the parking lot, that officer was going to pull him over. And they did. It is a feeling that many black men have on a regular basis just because of their existence. The rapper Ice Cube once said, my skin is my sin. That people understand that we are socialized in this country from birth through all of the messages that bombard us, that somehow black is not worthy. We all have an obligation to fight against anti-blackness, because it is not only our white sisters and brothers who can be bigoted towards darker skin. That's right. And the other story, when 9/11 happened, and my dad is clearly a black man, but to have the name Talib Alahi after 9/11 put a double burden on him. And so what I say to the Muslim community is that I relate to you, maybe not in every single aspect, but in the aspects of justice and what is right and what is good. I relate to you because my dad is Muslim. But even if he were not, I was groomed by my parents and my grandparents to have love for my sisters and brothers, no matter who they are, love for my family and friends, no matter who they are, and some of the deepest tenets of the Christian tradition. I remember when the smarter folks wanted to test Jesus, Dr. West, and they tried to test him off. But this one story in particular, when he was asked by a lawyer, what is the greatest commandment? He said to love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, the mind, soul, spirit. I might be adding a little extra to that.
That's all right, that's all
With
right.
all your mind, everything you got. And he said the second is to love thy neighbor as thyself. You all are my neighbors. And you don't have to be on this soil to be my neighbor. And if we got up every single day saying in whatever moves you, that you are going to be the change that you want to see in the world, that you are going to love your neighbor as yourself. The premise to that, though, is that you got to love yourself.
That's right.
Oh, what a wonderful world it would be. So I am running this race to stand up for the least of these, the working poor, the barely middle class, and the poor, no matter where they hail from. And then by extension, if you are blessed enough to be really, really above marijuana in the United States of America, expunge records, and then for the communities that have suffered the most by the war on drugs and being locked up in prison, hello black men, that the black community benefits from that economically. We got legalized marijuana in states, and we barely got black folks that own any of those businesses. Justice. Justice. For all. So I want to close with this. Again, being so humbled to be in your presence. And I want you to know that when I win this race, I have an open heart, open mind, and open door. Yeah. That your community will be represented in my office. Hello, somebody. You won't be represented in my office. From DC to this district. And I am going to do everything that I can. One of my Jewish brothers came up to me today and he said, I need you to be elected because I believe that you're going to be a bridge to this country and other nations. I'm going to do everything that God has given me in my power to do, to be a bridge for all things that God gives me to put my hand to. I understand the suffering that people are enduring both in this country and abroad. And it is unconscionable, it is untenable, it is not right. And we got to do something about it. Charity starts at home and it spreads abroad. Hello, somebody. So I'm going to end with this. And this is Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And I said this today, and I don't know why I don't have this memorized. I'm a quote queen and a scripture phenomenon. But this one I don't have memorized. But I want you to listen to this with your heart and not with your head. And I am asking this community to do everything. And first of all, I want to thank this community for supporting my candidacy. I have traveled this country over the last 6-7 years and have met with many people from the Muslim community and also the Arab American, in all communities. I hate we got to break all this down. From the community. And the love that you have shown me has been just absolutely awe-inspiring. I am asking this community, will you knock on one more door? Will you make one more phone call? Will you help Sister Turner win this race so that I can represent in love, continue to represent in love in the halls of Congress? So the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said the following. He said, power without love is reckless and abusive. And love without power is sentimental and anemic. Power at its best is love implementing the demands of justice, and justice at its best is power correcting everything that stands against love. I am running to marry power and love together, and to stand up against anything that is the antithesis of those two forces working in concert to lift people in this nation and in this world. Love Lifted Me is a song in the Christian tradition. I am running, and I do understand that you got to have some power to express that love in a way that changes material conditions, and that is why I am running this race. God bless you, my sisters and brothers. Wow. That's right. Wow.
I know that I'm speechless. I'll hand this over to Zia to close the evening, but we do have obviously food prepared for you all to enjoy. We're going to do a quick meet and greet with the Senator. I know she has some events that she has to go to. So, Senator Turner, Congresswoman Turner. Yes. President. As a community, We promise to do the best we can to make sure that your words echo in the House of Congress for us to represent us. And we'll be there to support you, to be the mountain you fall back on, because your fight can be lonely, right? I love you from the bottom of my heart, and I know every single one of us do here too. So without further ado, I'll have Jack close the evening for us. And again, thank you so much for the wonderful host committee for putting this event together to bring us together.
So we're going to close this out today with a couple of Islamic traditions. First of all, takbir. 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 Indeed, God is great. Lastly, it is our tradition that we end this in a prayer, and I'm not the one to do a prayer here, when we have plenty of qualified people to deliver a prayer. So I would ask Imam Abbas if you could step up and deliver a short prayer for us to close things out this evening.
Assalamu alaikum, brothers. Holy, righteous, and merciful Allah, all honor, power, and glory go to thee. Thine is the praise, blessed is thy name, and exalted is thy majesty, and there is none to be served with thee. We ask you, Allah, to bless this Senator Nina Turner. We ask you to bless her in all of her endeavors and make her successful, not only today, but also on August 3rd, 2021. We ask this in your most holy and your most righteous name, and we pray. Amen.
Amen.